Okay, so the next thing you want to ask a little bit about is, why do we summarize this kind of research? Like, why are we doing this? Is this a dumb question or not? Actually, it's a very good question. What a meta-analysis does is it summarizes or puts together a lot of different types of research studies that have asked the same exact question. And so one of the things that's really important in research is that you will look across not just one study, which might be odd, right? You might have a type 1 or type 2 error going on with one particular study. And remember, our probability of p.05 means that we would expect about 1 in 20 studies to give us the wrong answer from what is true, what is real. And so you need quite a few studies before you begin to say, yes, this type of treatment is effective, or yes, this type of independent variable affects that dependent variable, and this is how people work. And those are the kinds of questions that influence policy, that influence what therapies get done, that influence what kinds of future research gets studied. So it's very important, and it's an important question. It's not a dumb question. Now, the old way, before meta-analyses existed, before people thought of that as an option, people would do standard literature reviews. This is what you'll be doing for your dissertation. A standard literature review essentially treats the literature like a research study. You go out and you find all the literature that exists on your research question that you can locate, and you might kind of lob off certain groups. For instance, you might say, you know what, I'm not going to include dissertations. If it's not a published study and a research an article in an actual database and an actual publication that's been peer-reviewed, then I'm not going to include it. So it has to be a peer-reviewed, published article. That's very common for lit reviews, because if you include dissertations, you can end up getting a lot of studies that are poor quality studies and don't have the same level of peer review, and they're just out there somewhere. So people still do lit reviews. You will still do a lit review for your dissertation. But then you take and you look at what the research questions are in your area of study, and you answer the question. What a lit review does is say, does cognitive behavioral therapy work? And you don't give your opinion about that, because your opinion doesn't matter. We're researchers here. What matters is that what the literature says. Okay, there's been 15 studies that have studied cognitive behavioral interventions for people with eating disorders, let's say, and they all say, except for one, that they're effective. In that one study, this is the reason why I think it had poor design, poor controls, very brief intervention, maybe, something like that. So you try to explain away the anomalies and come out with kind of an answer for the reader. Does this thing matter? Does this IV affect this DV? So people still do that, but the reviewer is the one that arrives at some kind of summary of the research by using their brain, essentially. You use your brain and your mind, and you look at those studies so many times until you're just about to lose it, and in doing that, you come out kind of in a qualitative way almost with what you think the literature is saying. And you may have your own slant to it. You may say, there's 10 studies, 4 of which don't support it, 6 do. It's not great, but I think I can explain away why those 4 studies shouldn't matter to people. Whereas somebody else may look at the exact same literature and come to a very different conclusion on it, because they may think those 4 studies that don't support the hypothesis are really important, and we really need to consider these things.